Guys, it's Nicole, and I'm back today with part 2 of my 2016 month in review project. So basically this is going to kind of show a more slowed down look at September, June, and July. And for whatever reason, that was just kind of the order that I put them in the video. They weren't necessarily assembled in that order. It was just kind of what was working out as far as video clips. So in the intro of part 1, I had kind of explained that I ran out of time when I went to that crop. So when I got to September, I needed to go ahead and print out my photos. And as I mentioned before, my photos are 1.3 squared or 1.3 by 3 for any of like the long skinny ones. And I got a couple questions on part 1, and I did try to make sure and go back and reply to everybody, but just in case anybody had similar questions, I wanted to go ahead and kind of answer some of them here. Somebody had asked me if the photos are actually on like date order as far as like when they happened in the month, and the answer to that is no. You guys should know by now, I'm just honestly not that organized. The layout itself will live in my album in chronological order. The mismatch of photos on the month in review layout, I don't care what order they're in. It doesn't bother me to kind of have them out of order. If there was like a major holiday, so something like Halloween that I know is at the end of the month, or Christmas that I know is at the end of the month, I did kind of put them more towards like the lower right hand side of the layout. But that was kind of like a more obvious thing. But no, I did not pay attention to like the date and try to match it up to where it would be on the calendar or anything like that. As far as paper placement, again, I just kind of wing it. I tend to just kind of spread things out. And on one, I might put, 5 photos that all kind of go together into like a line and make almost like a little mini layout with those. I honestly, no rhyme or reason, no organization, nothing like that. I also had mentioned in the other video that these 3 I separated, and I wanted to kind of talk about why. When I had selected the digital product that I was going to be working with from Nicole Jones 911 Designs, I had downloaded this file that had, I think it had 4 different colors. It had the yellow, purple, and blue that I'm working with today, and I believe there might have been a green on there. So these ones were already kind of set aside to pair with those labels that I had printed out. Yellow was one that I didn't really have a problem matching things up to. I just kind of lumped it in with the purple and the blue layouts because I was having a problem and the labels had that color on them. So hopefully that makes sense. But this yellow one, which is September, is basically what I had done with every other layout, and I just kind of sped it up a little bit more in part 1 and didn't really go into a ton of detail as far as what I was doing. Here, again, a lot of the layouts, I ended up doing like a border punch and a strip of pattern paper because I wanted to cover up that bracket at the top. I could have chosen to cover like the entire section and just change that pattern to something else. For whatever reason, I didn't. This was kind of where my brain was going, and I went with that. I know a lot of you had commented that this is a really good solution for kind of using up some scraps and some leftover products, and that kind of was my intention when I first bought them and saw that they were like a different color for each month in a sense, because I think there was only 12 of these, and these don't seem to be currently available anywhere. However, in part 1, I did link in the description box, and I'll put it here too. I saw on scrapbook.com, Authentique has a similar type of calendar page, but they're all white, so you can really embellish what you want. And the calendar itself is kind of centered in on the paper, so you could do like a whole frame around it or do pretty much anything. So I'll link that here too as well, just so you can kind of see something similar. A friend had mentioned that Creative Memories used to have similar papers like this too. So if you are a Creative Memories girl and you kind of know their products, maybe you can leave a comment below and let anybody know if those are available. I personally just have not had the time to kind of go and do some research on that. But ultimately, you could do this 100% just on your own with just grid paper or even just regular white cardstock. And you could even take like a pen and just draw some cubes. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be calendar pages. Again, this is just me sharing what I have done for fun and for inspiration. There's no reason to go and try to recreate this unless you want to torture yourself as well. So here you can see that basically I went and added some stamping, and then I went through and just kind of found places to go ahead and put those labels, because for me, those labels were going to act as kind of like filler for some bigger embellishments, because a lot of the time I either have like really big stickers left on a sheet or like teeny tiny stickers left on a sticker sheet. So I, again, was drawn towards these labels because to me they're super easy to use, especially in something like this. So once I put the labels on, again, I just pull out my leftover binder, and I'm not really making like creative choices here. I'm just grabbing anything that's kind of catching my eye, and it, doesn't say anything like holiday themed or doesn't say anything that would not work with a kind of basic everyday layout like this. And I ended up using a lot of stuff that has been kind of just hanging around for years. That large square and white like scallop label thing I have had for probably 10 years. I've only got like 1 or 2 left from this pack of die cuts from Stampin' Up! Again, 10 plus years ago. I think I had 2 or 3 packs of those. They were my absolute like favorite thing that they had ever come out with. And I ended up using, I think, a yellow one, a red one, and maybe a brown one on these. So it was fun to pull stuff that was like super old, and then some of the stuff was new. The Enjoying This Adventure stamp set was a title builder one from Ellie Studio, which was a recent purchase for me. That stamp set has been around for a couple of years, I think, but it was a recent purchase for me. The other stamp sets were super old. So for me, a lot of the fun of this project was kind of just taking a big mess of anything that I found that caught my eye. And being focused again on color really kind of made choices easier. So from here, I've moved on to the purple one, which I'm pretty sure is June. And purple was another one that not many people tend to include in their collections. So I didn't have a ton of purple in my scrap paper bag. This gingham came from a big pad from Simple Stories that has like gingham and wood grain and stuff like that. And then because I kind of already knew by the time I was getting towards these pages, I was already kind of figuring out what colors I was going to have an issue with when I got to them. And so again, the labels from Nicole Jones was kind of going to be one of my main embellishments for this one. And knowing that going into it, I was really glad that I had them. Other things that I had managed to find was like a American Craft sticker book that I had, for whatever reason, bought at Tuesday Morning. And the pad of stickers wasn't necessarily like my favorite thing. I've probably had it for 2 years, and this was the first time that I used it. But I was noticing that there was a lot of purple embellishments in it and a lot of basic things like those little like arrow stickers, and there was a couple like circle and wood grain stickers. So those were really going to work out for me. Here I was basically just kind of sharing with you guys how easy it was to cut out a lot of the labels. I didn't sit here and cut the whole paper out. I was mostly focused on the colors that I was needing to use. And then when I got done with the whole project, I went back and finished cutting out the rest of them. So like I didn't use any of those green ones yet because the green pattern paper for these calendar pages, I had already done that layout. So that one was already kind of in an album. So I have all of those kind of set aside. I am currently figuring out how I'm going to be storing these. So that's kind of what I've been occupying myself with lately. I really, really want to jump back into my Easter kit. Like, I'm getting more and more motivated to get into it, but it's that time of year where you start getting like antsy about Christmas, and the thought of going and playing with cutesy Easter stuff right now is kind of holding me back. So in the meantime, while I'm sitting through second grade distance learning, I have been cutting apart stuff and kind of testing out some different storage methods. The one that I originally thought I was going to go with, I didn't even test that one out. I kind of went straight with another one, and I think I'm going to just kind of show you guys in a separate video just so you can kind of see, because it will also answer some other questions that I've been getting a lot in part one of the month in review layouts as well. So same thing with the yellow layout, and I had talked about in part one. I didn't follow the same steps. Like, it wasn't always photos first, then paper, then journaling, then title. I just kind of went with whatever I was in the mood to deal with. So in this case, I've got my journaling done before I went through and started doing stamping. So this, again, it's just whatever I'm in the mood for. I'm not going to force myself. Like, I'm kind of learning how to approach my process. And for me, forcing things does not work. So I just kind of go with the flow, go with what I'm in the mood for. And if things are out of order, then they're out of order. It doesn't bother me. Those purple labels ended up working perfectly for this. Even looking at the video right here, you can tell that the purples aren't all the same tone. That does not bother me. I wasn't going for like perfectly matched tones of each of these colors. Now, when I get to July was like an issue. In July, I was very, very thankful that I had downloaded that specific file of labels, because the way that my printer chose to kind of interpret that blue really, really worked for me. With the purple one that I'm still kind of playing around with here, again, I did the same thing like the other layouts in part one where I shared, where I just go through and I do try to go to my leftover binder first and use up things that are already there. Then I kind of go to my 12 by 12 sticker sheets and pull stuff from there. This was those 2 sticker packs that I had got from Tuesday morning, and I just kind of pulled some stuff out of there. And I got lucky that there was some gold stickers in that pad as well to kind of pull in with the title. And then instead of enamel dots on this one, I went with Nuvo drops, which was pretty much my go-to. If I had a Nuvo drop color that coordinated, I tried to use them just as a change up from enamel dots or something like that. And for whatever reason, this purple one actually has done like better than some of the other colors that I have. I don't know. Some of them kind of come out a little chunky and some of them come out a little watery. This purple one was really good. And it kind of made me want to go and order a couple more colors, because I think I only have like 6 or 7 and I don't have like a very good array of colors to pick from. Hence why I tend to go with enamel dots a lot of the time. So here, like I'm talking about, for whatever reason, this like true blue color that Doodlebug used, I went through my scraps. I went through all those other 6x6 pads that I had out. This was a 6x8 from Jelly Bean Soup. They all just looked wrong. And I don't normally say that there's anything wrong in scrapbooking, but for whatever reason, I was struggling to find something that was going to match. So my go-to is usually to go to that same manufacturer, because they're the ones that produce these colors. They should have something that's going to match. So I just went and pulled this 4th of July line that I've used in a couple videos this year, because I knew that those blues were going to match. Some of the other Doodlebug scraps that I had were just a completely different blue, and I was a little surprised about that. But yeah, for whatever reason, this color blue was the one that kind of gave me the most problems. So I didn't do as much pattern paper as I did on some of the other ones. And then I took some of these little shrunk down cut aparts to use as embellishments as well, because I knew going into this that if I was having a hard time finding paper to match, I was probably going to have a hard time finding embellishments in my personal stash that were going to pull this specific blue tone. And again, this is why this one is separated, because that file of labels from Nicole Jones, that blue ended up being like spot on. And I, again, check the description box. I'll leave links below to her store and this specific file, just in case you are wanting to see like the file image for reference. And I'll also put a link for the video that I did kind of sharing I think it was 10 files that I downloaded to kind of play with for November. And I kind of talked about my thought process of why I picked them and what I was going to do with them. So I try to put as much stuff in the description box as possible for you guys, because I know that it might take me a while to answer a comment. I try to answer them when I see them pop up, but I'm human, so sometimes there's a delay. So if you have a question, check the description box and just see if I did leave like any more information. But by all means, ask away down in the comments, because that's, like I've said before, I love like the comment section on my channel and some other channels that I watch, because you really do get to know people and you get to kind of chat about a hobby that obviously we all enjoy, just on a different platform than something like Facebook or a forum. So here I was just going through, at this point I had gone back and cut apart all of those labels and then just threw them in like a little acrylic box thing that I found in my room, and just kind of figured out where I was going to put those labels. I ended up like cutting the circle apart, spreading it into 2 different areas, and then I went into my leftover binder and was trying to find anything in there. Clearly I didn't have high hopes to find anything, and I didn't really find anything. So I went back to that 4th of July line where I kind of stole the paper from, and went and looked at the die cut pack, and I figured, well, I can probably just pull out some of the more like basic things, so like stars and hearts. Even though, yes, this is July, yes, there are some 4th of July photos in there, I definitely could have used some of the like firework die cuts and stuff. I just didn't think about it until now. So sometimes I can get like tunnel vision when I'm doing 2 or 3 of these layouts at a time, where I've gotten into kind of this assembly line routine. I've gotten it in my mind that, you know, I'm looking for small basic type shapes, and I'm not sort of broadening my outlook on some of my supplies, but it's fine. It's stuff that's obviously in my room. It's stuff that's getting put on a layout, and I enjoyed the process. These were actually really relaxing to do, just because there wasn't really any decisions to be made. The only like decision-making process that I did was assigning a color to each month and which photos I was going to print. Even cropping and printing the photos, I didn't really make a ton of decisions on. It was basically, if I can't crop it into a square, it's going to be a 1.3 by 3 inch. Like, that was it. So there wasn't any like, oh, do I want this to be vertical? Do I want this to be horizontal? Nope. I'm going to crop it to a square. If I can't crop it to a square or I lose too much, it's going to be a long and skinny photo. No worries. By the time I had already figured out, and like you could say, I had cut Post-it notes apart and labeled the papers so that I didn't get them kind of confused when I went to do the journaling or when I went to do the embellishing and stuff. Pattern papers, I dug through scraps and just kind of went with whatever color I was working on. Picking embellishments and stuff, super easy, because I wasn't doing anything where I was necessarily needing to support a theme or a mood or a feel. This is just daily life. This is messy photos. This is, I mentioned in part 1, 2016 was the year that most of my photos are my kids in their underwear. There's a photo of my daughter doing dishes in her underwear. I don't fight with my kids at this age about getting dressed when we're home. I just make sure that I don't, post pictures in a video or online of anything not okay. the instance where she was washing dishes, this was kind of where she was getting to the age where she wanted to help me out with things. So a lot of times I would leave the plastic cups and bowls and stuff for the end, and I'd say, okay, you know, I've done my dishes, you can come over here. And I mean, this girl, she will move out of my house at some point because she can cook and she can do dishes and she can do laundry and stuff like that. My son is a little bit more like, you kind of have to push him to help out, and when he does, he's really good about it. But she's just kind of always been my little like, oh, I see that you're doing something, can I do it too? This instance, she wasn't wearing any clothing, and I wasn't gonna be like, oh no, you have to get dressed to do dishes. It was like, nope, grab your stool, here you go, here's your sponge, get to going. And at that age, I would have to go back and kind of rewash some of her stuff, but I just made sure that I told her that she did a good job and I appreciated it, and, you know, we kind of moved on. Now, for July, I did go kind of like with June, where I had some of a contrasting color, and it was mostly just because that summer cut apart had a red heart in it, and it was the only thing on the entire layout that had red in it, and it was bothering me for some reason. So I just grabbed some red doodlebug gems and just kind of scattered them everywhere. I don't count clusters. I don't, especially with something like this. The whole layout's just chaotic, messy, and I'm totally fine with that. So here I've got photos of all of the completed layouts, up close pictures so you guys can see a little bit more as far as like the journaling and stamping and stuff like that. Same thing with part 1. All of the journaling I popped up with my favorite foam strips. I don't think that there was anything that was like new supplies other than the embellishments from Nicole Jones. That was 100% new to me, and this was sort of my first time using them and playing with them, and they were super easy to cut apart, super easy to use. So if you kind of lean towards basics and stuff like that, and you find yourself using those things off of sticker sheets pretty quickly, I would recommend maybe going and checking out her store. There are a ton of products in her store, but she does kind of have it broken down into, you know, if you're looking for labels, go to the label section. If you're looking for alphas, go to the alpha section. Otherwise, I think on the home screen, there might be like the newest things that she's added to the store, but that changes every time they post. And it seems like she has stuff almost weekly. I very quickly got overwhelmed, so I kind of had to rein it in and be like, okay, what projects do I have coming down the line and what will help me with that? So knowing that I had these coming, I intentionally went looking for basics, things like labels that I can put in to the little squares on the calendar pages and stuff like that. So as always, I thank you guys for spending time with me today. Again, apparently it was another 23-minute day. Hopefully I've kind of answered some of the questions that I was getting a lot in part 1. If not, 100% leave me a question down below and I will answer it as quickly as I can. And I will catch you guys in another video. I'm not sure what my next project is going to be. It might be Easter, so I guess we'll see where my mood takes me in the next day or two. With that, I'm going to say bye, and I'll catch you guys later.